Brian and I almost had a show on the phone earlier.
We went 35 minutes. And then I started laughing. I said, I think we have a show here. We probably could just hit the record button.
I love that. The only thing I know about you is that you have your own podcast, which is great because the sound and everything is
way different than
we had a guy calling from a job site, which is great. He was literally in his truck on a job site yesterday,
and he was on the phone.
If the audio sounds a little bit better, it's because
Felipe and silky smooth on his end.
He's got his own little setup over there for his own show.
Welcome to the EBFC show, the easier, better for construction podcast. I'm your host, Felipe, engineer Manriquez. This show is all about the business of construction.
Today's episode is sponsored by Construction Accelerator.
The design and construction industries come up with and build great things, but we also build and waste in how we do those things, in our interactions, in our contracts, in our logistics. So what does this do for our bottom line or our next project? The best firms maximize their value by removing that waste and only doing what's essential to the work, what makes them money. Construction Accelerator will train you to see the waste and give your teams the lean tools and experience to remove it immediately. All online. Construction Accelerator is made up of 3 to 9 minute videos that can be watched again and again in the field, at the office, and at home, all broken down by topic. Need to learn pool planning? We have videos on the process, how to set up a room, and how to kick off a team. Need to set up a target value delivery project? We discuss all the aspects of TVD, especially cost. Or maybe you just need to brush up on 5S. Well, we have videos on that as well. You can download and print reference materials to use on site to immediately translate watching into doing. Subscribe today at trycanow.com. Let's build an industry, not just a project.
Today's show is also sponsored by the Lean Construction Institute. LCI is working to lead the building industry in transforming its practices and culture. Its vision is to create a healthy and thriving industry that delivers outstanding project outcomes every time for everyone. Check the show notes for more information. Now, to the show. Mike, if you need me to record your voicemail message with this microphone. Oh, welcome to the show, Mike and Brian.
Yo.
How you guys doing?
Fantastic,
great,
thank
you. Yeah.
Twice
really are, right?
Brian.
No, this is 3 times. This is our 3rd time. We had their phone call. We did a podcast recording. Here's our 2nd podcast recording. The name's Brian Summers. And like part of our conversation, we work directly with contractors, obviously, right? That's what our show's all about. It happened on the job. We work from really kind of the insurance standpoint, and was the genesis of the show. And to be quite candid, and I think I was candid with you earlier on the phone, I was not really sold on the idea of doing a podcast. Mike and I kind of worked through it together and kind of figured out that it would be something that we would be eventually interested in doing. And we've actually come to love it, which is ironic. I mean, we were not excited about it at different points of that.
In fact, I was a hell no when the idea came up first.
It was a strong hell no. I think it's not so much like, the equipment and the idea of having a show that's aired. That to be honest is not really important. I enjoy the relationship. I think that kind of comes across in the way we. What's that?
I said with Mike or with your guest?
Well, maybe both. Mike's very uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, be careful how you answer. He's
right.
No, I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy learning. I think it's kind of funny. Usually with our podcast, Mike probably says maybe about 70% or really takes control in terms of 70% of those questions. And I like to listen and learn. And I tend to kind of chime in about halfway through and then get excited because I'm learning and I'm soaking in. So I love learning about people, love meeting them. I'm very interested in those that are able to pull themselves up, for lack of a better term, pull themselves up by their bootstraps, especially in this space, and overcome so many different issues and really build a business that's rewarding. And that this podcast actually ironically has given us the space to do so. So yeah, that's my very long-winded way of saying why I love what we're doing pretty much on a daily basis. Jeez.
Yeah. We record almost daily and talking to people.
Yeah.
Mike Fisher, by the way. I think for me, it's the relationships as well. More for me, it's helping bridge that gap between technology and the construction industry itself, because it's so far behind in that aspect. It's fun. I think we just talked about how we've done 90, 95 episodes, and and most of them, I'd say probably close to 75 or 80, it's been their first podcast that they've even been on. Some they'd never even heard of a podcast before they come on our show. So not to toot my own horn or toot our own horn, but like I feel like we're kind of a catalyst or a pioneer in this space, in this vertical, in this industry, because there's not a lot of it. I mean, obviously you're doing it as well, but I think from our side, we're giving a platform for these people to come on and tell their story and, showcase their business and explain all the ways that they do things and how they've overcome certain things. And I guess my idealistic hope is that somebody else is out there listening that says, man, I'm going through that right now too. And they get to hear how somebody else went through it and obviously got past it and moved on and succeeded in doing it. So it's all that. And obviously the relationships, we've heard so many good stories about people that have been on our show that have got phone calls and it's turned into work or turned into relationships or turned into all these different things. And all
unintended.
These are all unintended consequences from when we started, right? I mean, we're really just trying to build relationships and build a network and push that tech part of the industry. But there's so many unintended positive consequences that have come with it. That's makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah. Rewarding.
Right on. And do I understand that both of you are musicians, or is that just Brian?
No, just him. I suck.
Mike likes music. He likes music a lot, but no, it's just
good.
me.
What do you play, Brian?
I play primarily now electric guitar, some acoustic, but yeah, I've got some cool toys.
Yeah, because you guys your show is super professional.
I think we're just hacking it together, so thank you.
He likes us. He really likes us.
When you do something 95 times, it's bound to get better.
Oh, well, 100%. Yeah, the first 5 or 6, we were kind of like
a little rough, a little stiff.
Yeah, a little stiff, but
yeah, no, it is good. I've gotten to sample a couple of your shows. When Brian reached out, I was like, oh, thanks. And then when I asked you guys, like, hey, would you do a dual show and be on my show? And you're like, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
why not?
This is actually the third time we've done this, right?
I think so. Yeah, David Suter and then John Cephalou.
Yeah, we're all about it, man. We love it.
Yeah, the space. You guys have a really good title. The emojis are awesome. I mean, definitely, whoever emojied you up was spot on.
That was Apple. I mean, we can't take any credit for that. We just took our Memoji from our Apple iPhones, and then it was like
we probably owe some copyright fees. to somebody
maybe I shouldn't have said anything.
The idea for the show, like you guys, like us, like I was encouraged by somebody to do it, and then you listened to them and you tried it.
Yeah.
It was pitched to us as a relationship and networking kind of tool within our space and in our industry, which it has been, and it is great. I wanted to make sure that if this is something we were going to do, and Brian was on the same page too, that we wanted to make sure that there was actually some substance behind it, something that people would be proud to be on and wanted to, share with other people, and bringing people on and letting them showcase their business a little bit and tell their story. You kind of see it. The people light up, right? Their eyes light up when they get to talk about their story and the things that they've done and the places they've come from. And it's been a lot more fun that way rather than just building a hollow show that just is there as a networking tool. But
well, and even, kind of at the beginning, and part of where we came from, or at least when the thought first was initiated, I guess, was because of some of the conversations we have with contractors on a daily basis. But those conversations aren't great conversations because they're generally having to do with a claim.
Shit hits the fan or something happens.
Right. Yeah. And so, and like I said, all these unintended benefits that you didn't really think to see, I'm now learning about businesses and industries that were never really, you kind of read about them, but we were only a fabric of that, right? Or a piece of that fabric. Right. Now you're learning about, it kind of goes to what you were talking about, Felipe, on our show in terms of always wanting to innovate, always wanting to learn, always wanting to move forward. And that's just probably been one of my favorite parts of this show.
Yeah. Most folks, and like yourselves, you see people born with this natural curiosity, and then depending on how they grow up and their circumstances, it gets beat out of them. For you guys, for what you're doing in the insurance space, I don't think there's anything else like it.
Yeah, I mean,
at least
the coordination between the two, yeah, for sure. I don't think we haven't come across anything else. There's definitely people out there doing other construction podcasts. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're one of them. Nobody from our angle or what we're doing. But I mean, it's not even about that, right? I mean, for us, it's just more about building relationships and building that network of people and kind of creating a little community. The end goal is for this show to be a community and a database for people to kind of go back and as a resource, right? Yeah. Like, hey, how did they do it? How did they do this? How do they see that? How do they experience that? And yeah, like I said, that resource bank for
yeah, I mean,
contractors.
Felipe, you mentioned that you had, spoken with Neil and Jerry actually on our show. I don't think that was connected to the show. I was speaking with another guy who's coming. He's actually recording with us next Thursday. I mean, he shared with me, he's like, yeah, I reached out to one of your other guests that have been on the show recently, Matt D'Arienzo, wanted to pick his brain and learn a little bit more. So once again, more unintended cool benefits of creating this not only learning to network with others, but creating that network of contractors that are willing to actually, talk to each other, speak to each other, that probably never would have had that connection
otherwise,
or maybe they would have, but it just maybe would have taken longer. It's just it's neat to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's only through like participating. It wasn't until I went to my first conference, earlier in my career, where I got to talk to other professionals doing the same type of job that I was doing. Like one of my early jobs as a kid was doing punch list work, overhead punch list. Mm-hmm. So it's like put a hard hat on and just look up at the ceiling, 250,000 square feet of rooms, and like just have like neck aches every day. And then finding other people that had similar experiences and like telling you like, oh, if you do this, you could cut the time in half, and it's like, that is just like priceless. How's that going to happen? And that was I'm so old that was 1999. And my project manager said, email is a fad that's not going to last. Yeah. And the two of you, did you guys always work together or did you know each other before?
No, it's just been through work. I started here about 6 years ago, a little over 6 years ago. And then he started about a year later.
Yeah. Of course we find things out about each other, like, oh, you knew my brother and father-in-law in some form or fashion and, in different circumstances. But we actually met face to face. He had been working here for about a year and I came in interested in the opportunity here and got a chance to meet him and another gentleman. And that was kind of the beginning of that about five and a half years ago.
5 years ago, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think once I got past, again, it was pitched to us as, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way from the guys that pitched it to us, but it more or less a platform to create relationships, right? And this is the example I use, and this is, I'm being fully transparent here, and this might turn some people off, but if I pick up the phone and call you as a contractor and say, my name's Mike, I'm with Goodman Insurance, 99.9% of those people can't hang up the phone fast enough. Yeah. If I call you, as a contractor and say, my name's Mike and I've got a podcast, I want you to tell your story I want to give you a platform to tell your story and showcase your business. Most people are a lot more receptive there. The only people that are going to say no are the ones that maybe are a little too shy or a little, I mean, honestly, a lot of people that say no are the ones that maybe have something to hide. We all know it doesn't ever happen in the construction space, but
never.
Yeah, never. So long story short, we're creating relationships with people that down the road, hopefully, maybe might one day want to buy insurance from us, right? That was the initial goal of the show or of doing this. And I think Brian was the same way. I more say that to illustrate the point that he and I wanted to have something that actually meant something, that was actually fun and people would be excited about to be on and excited to share. And and to do it for those reasons, the relationships are going to come. If you do it for those reasons, the relationships are going to come. If you do it only for the relationship, then I felt like that was going to be pretty transparent. People would be able to see through that. So once we found a way to do it in such a way that we would have fun doing it and people would appreciate being on, that's when we both kind of warmed up to it and have been able to kind of move forward with it. And I think it's been great ever since.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And the first show made it the light of day. Show number 1 was the first show and got published.
Yeah, we haven't recorded anything that we haven't published. There's been a few that maybe we shouldn't have, but
I only said that because I've got some friends that once I started my podcast, they were like, I've got 2 seasons worth of shows that I haven't published yet. Get them out there. And I had some other friends who were like, I'm thinking about doing a show. I was like, stop thinking, start doing.
Yeah. Just do it.
The only time we've ever gotten a little questioning in regards to that, there was a point where we were severely backed up and it was just an editing issue. And meaning our editor was just not able to keep up with the amount of content that we were given to him. And so occasionally I would get somebody would say, hey, just double checking, seeing if you're going to actually air my show. And I'm like, no, your show's going to be aired. It's just, we're working on stuff on our end in terms of technicality. So,
well, and we didn't, I think part of that is that we didn't think it would be that, I don't want to say popular, but that I don't think we thought.
You're not Rachel Maddow, Brian.
I don't think we thought that people would be that excited or that the reception would be there. Right. So we came up with the idea and said, okay, let's message a couple hundred people each on LinkedIn and see what they say. And when it was like a 30 or 40%, like, yes, I want to do it, it's almost like, oh crap. Right.
Now we got to do something.
Yeah. Not only that, but, and then you get, we want to hear so many stories and we want to hear, and we want to give so many people that opportunity that we almost don't say no to anybody. Right. So that's also why we have so many and are so busy doing it all the time. Because if we ask you to come on a show and you want to do it, like, we're going to let you do it. Good, bad, or indifferent. Like, we're going to let you do it. Like, that's what we're here for. Everybody that we bring on, you're hearing it. No cuts, no edits, no nothing. Just the conversation as it is.
Yeah, the learnings that people do are priceless. Like, I've found out, most of the guests that I have, I know. A couple of exceptions, new people that I haven't known well. What is shared, the feedback I hear from people is just motivates me to keep doing it over and over again. I'm sure as you guys as well. Mm-hmm. I'm just astounded, like your pace you put on, guys. It's incredible. To travel quite a bit for work, so this is the maximum 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks for me is the max I can do.
I don't want to say easy, but like from a schedule standpoint, like our offices are 20 feet that way. Yeah. So if we record, we step over to here to record. Yep. We're done. We step back over there. Yep. We upload everything to a cloud, and our editor takes it from there. And so we offload a lot of. Because if we had to edit our own stuff into it, there'd be no chance. Yeah. No chance. Yeah. But I mean, when we can spend 3 to 5 hours a week doing 3 to 5 shows, and that's all the time we need to spend because somebody else is editing it and somebody else is posting and doing all that stuff, then it makes it pretty easy for us, and we enjoy doing it.
What's something interesting that you guys have learned from a guest that you never would have expected, where your mouth was almost like open, you couldn't talk?
I'm thinking of stories. I mean, more of
just pick one. Just cherry pick, Brian.
Oh gosh, all right. I don't know. Well, we had one guy on the show that did a lot of decks and different things, especially on the residential side. And you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Not yet.
No. Okay, well, he was in the backyard.
My memory's not great. So this kind of question is better suited for Brian.
Like I said, let me go back and talk about from the insurance side. You know, we only hear about, hey, I've got this claim that's sitting, it's causing my ex-mod to go crazy. And, so I don't usually get to be a party to the other side of things where, oh my gosh, you won't believe what happened today on the job when this naked woman came out to try to, to try to, do things to me. So I mean, a lot of these, and I can't say that's probably one out of almost 100 shows that things like that have happened, but occasionally we do get, we get those kinds of stories. We had a guy on the show yesterday, which was kind of cool, called us from the truck on the job site, just kind of cool things that were happening like in the moment while on the job. And we had to kind of narrate like, oh, he's stepping out, the porta potty guy's coming out, so, like different, just really kind of fun interactions that happen as a result. That one particular story has definitely caught me off guard.
There's a lot of strange stuff that happens on construction projects.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
I've got stories. I probably could record like 80 hours worth of content from just one job site in particular. But it's not that kind of show.
Yeah. Right. No, I hear you.
Well, that's awesome. Like insurance is definitely a big part of construction. Everybody pays for it. We all benefit from it. That it's one of those nice collective deals that we have with folks. So I think people take insurance for granted. I mean, you guys probably know better than most, right? Until we need it.
Until you need it. Yeah.
Hate it until you need it.
Yeah.
Even hate it when you need it. But yeah.
Do you have like insurance friends where you guys get together and talk about like?
No, that's boring as hell. Nobody likes that.
Although, I mean, we do end up hanging out together quite a bit, but no, there's a lot of cross collaboration even within the team here. The guy that started our company has been around for 40 years. And so I call him kind of the Gandalf. And so there's a lot of knowledge that's shared internally, especially just because, insurance for anything is different than insurance of construction. We talk to a lot of, especially smaller contractors that might jump into a contract. And so they have to have an insurance policy and they pick up a liability policy that gets them on the job. And they think they've got, they can get the job and go forward with the work. But when a claim happens, like you were mentioning earlier, they don't actually have coverage. So there's a lot of those things that if you're not in the construction space and know how to read those forms on a construction or a liability policy, and what contractor would know that? It's an 85-page document that, it gets stuffed away, and basically they need the policy number and the carrier name to be able to get paid and continue to work. And it's only when it starts raining that they need to pull it out again and they realize that man, I've got a terrible broker that put me in a bad position. And so a lot of the knowledge that's shared is, and Mike's been around the business. He was here a year before me. And then he also had several years prior, and with a mom in the insurance space. So he's got quite a bit more knowledge than I do. So I've gotten the benefit of that because I came from a completely different industry prior to insurance. So the nice thing about sharing a wall, I can walk around the corner and say, "Hey, Mike, I need some help." So there's a lot of that goes on here, which helps, especially with construction. So
no, it's exciting. Like, for people listening, if you don't get the chance to be in a lawsuit, you're missing out.
Amen.
Yeah. Exciting. That's the word we'll use. Yep, for sure.
It's exciting. It was like, I met so many lawyer friends over the course of one claim that went on for 9 years.
Ugh.
The lawyers were pretty cool, and they were telling me that in law school, the vast majority of construction case examples, or just examples as they're learning, even before they decide they're going to work in construction space, it's construction lawsuits.
Yep.
It's just predominant.
Yep.
Well, the construction industry itself creates a lot of the statutes and the law in most other industries as well.
Precedent.
It's funny because we go to insurance seminars. Ooh, want to talk about exciting. Want to talk about exciting,
guys. A lot
of
coffee at those.
Yeah, want to talk about exciting. But it's funny because, I mean, being producers or brokers that only work in construction, obviously only know that niche, right? But these insurance seminars that are enthralling and invigorating, they're supposed to cover all industries, right? But it's same kind of thing. Almost every example they give as to why this policy is written this way, or why this is done this way, or what you're supposed to be looking for has to do with construction. So it's good in that sense that, I mean, most of those things are built around what we do, but yeah, to prove your example, that's what drives a lot of the litigation, and especially in California.
Oh yeah, my daughter the other night, 13, she comes downstairs and it's about 10 o'clock at night. She goes to bed at 9. And I said, "What are you doing up?" And she goes, "I can't sleep, Dad. I'm thirsty. I'm hungry." Kind of goes through the litany of things. And I said, "Do you want me to tell you about general liability exclusion forms?" And she goes, "No, I'm going to bed." All right, worked.
That's awesome. I'm going to use that one tonight.
Yeah, right.
I've been in the business for over 22 years, and I originally went to school for engineering, and engineer is actually my last name.
I was going to say, when I saw it, I didn't know if that was your title
we
in the
had
middle
that
of
conversation. Yeah.
And I got into school thinking that I didn't want to work with my parents. Like, love you, Mom and Dad, but they worked in a different industry altogether, more in manufacturing. And I was just like, I got to try something different, be my own person. So I went to school for computer engineering, of all things. And then I was in school. I'm old enough to remember Y2K, and old enough to remember how overblown and exaggerated it was.
Well,
did you think that at the time, though?
What do you say?
Yeah.
Did you think it was overblown and exaggerated at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah?
I did.
Okay.
Although I did have a hint of, I remember that night, it's a long story, but I was by myself, and it wasn't because I thought the world was going to end, but I remember thinking at 11:59 and 30 seconds, you're going, okay, 30 more seconds, and then you kind of twinge, and then it's like, oh, we're all right. Everything's fine.
Yeah, nothing happened.
Yep.
So, but the downside to that was the economy like really heated up as that was happening. So I'm in school halfway through getting my computer engineering degree, and like nobody could get jobs after Y2K was over. Like, first there wasn't enough people, and then there were too few people, and then not enough demand. Yeah. So I just flipped over to electrical engineering, and that's what I actually graduated in. A buddy of mine was working for a large general contractor in Chicago. That's where we grew up. Got the little Sears Tower over my shoulder, if you can see it. I flipped over to that, and my friend said, "Hey, you got to check out this job." He wasn't trying to even make me think about construction. He was a fellow electrical engineer, and took me to check out a job, and I just fell in love with it. His company was at a career fair. If you look me up on LinkedIn, you can figure out what company I'm talking about. It's the Big Blue is their nickname, and went to work for them right out of school. 4 years later, 2008 comes, something that affected pretty much everybody that listens to your show.
Yep.
The recession of 2008. We ended up going west, and I got starting to work for McCarthy Building Companies. That was 12 years ago. It's like I just closed my eyes and it was yesterday. Yeah. But half my career I worked in construction as an engineer, project manager type. Even did a little time as a superintendent in Chicago, which was awesome. Downtown Michigan Avenue was the last time I got to be a superintendent on a 21-story high-rise overlooking Millennium Park.
Wow.
That was awesome. Yeah, 6 North Michigan I got it here too. right after, '08, the scar from '08.
Right.
I got those good memories there. It started working at McCarthy. It was somebody at McCarthy that turned me onto this whole idea of lean construction. And it was just all of this borrowed from manufacturing that goes way back. I mean, the roots of lean construction, for those that don't know, it just goes way, way back. Lean is not L-I-E-N, as some of your listeners might be thinking about.
It's know how to go file those?
Not the mechanic leans and the,
Yeah, not that type of lean. It's L-E-A-N. And in that type of thinking, it's all about respect for people, continuous improvement, making what you do better, easier, faster, and fun. And part of that, there's this acronym that's been out there for a long time. I can't take the credit on it. EBFC, it's the recipe for how to start being lean. The first thing you do is you make your work easier, then you make it better. It naturally becomes faster and ultimately becomes cheaper. So that was the genesis for naming my show, because my show is all for construction people, and we wanted to make it easier, better for construction. So that's what it stands for. I've worked across the country, worked in hospitals, schools, commercial work, community college, elementary education type of projects. Now with working at McCarthy, industrial, solar, like very large, 100 plus acre, like 800 acre and larger solar plants, fields, industrial work, coal fire plants, airports, casinos, hotels, just all over the place now. Based out of California, but I serve the company coast to coast. And before COVID, or like I like to refer to it as BCE, before COVID ever, I used to fly quite a bit. Demand is still high. When COVID hit, it didn't affect the job other than just the location. Yeah. The job stayed, demand went higher, and we'd been doing actually more. Like I had time to start my podcast, which just happened in July. Early in my career, and I'm sure a lot of people know this too, like things that really made your job easier did not always come from the immediate vicinity of what's on your job. Sometimes the idea and innovation came from somewhere else.
Right.
So for us in construction, like borrowing from manufacturing, and manufacturing was borrowing from shipbuilding, and shipbuilding was borrowing from the military, and everybody just kept borrowing from other industries. And those types of ideas just make it so impactful. The innovation potential is like infinite. The last thing I did for McCarthy before I went into this role was a project manager on a traditional design bid build project in the city of Orange for Chapman University.
And that's actually perfect, because my next question was going to be, going into this role, was it something that you pitched to them as, hey, look, this is what I can do and this is what I want to do full time? Or do they come to you and say, hey, we're looking to create this position?
Yeah, so they came to me early when I was working at McCarthy, like way early, more than 10 years ago. There was a gentleman who made a presentation at one of our company get-togethers and said, here's some cool stuff happening on our job. And this is the way we're doing it. We're borrowing these ideas called lean for manufacturing. And that's kind of like how I was pitching. That day I was drinking like 2 pots of coffee a day. Like if you can imagine, I'm sure you got listeners out there that are probably close to that type
of jittery. Yep.
No, that's just to stay awake because you're just working so much. This was just totally radically different. So I got involved in this little group, just like volunteer for fun. We would get together outside of work in the beginning and then inside of work hours later as you build your capacity to be able to volunteer more. So I became part of this little group, and we were experimenting, reading books, studying, encouraging each other to try new things. And this little group grew. And eventually 2014, the company noticed and said, hey, we'd like to pilot this as an initiative across the company. And we want to come to people like you in this group that are doing this. Could you try this and make it more formal? And we're like, sure. And they're like, what are the things that we could do? Like, so they had an idea of what they wanted to do, upper management. And then we had an idea of what we had been doing for, at that point, probably about 5 years or so, maybe closer to 8 years. Some of the people had been there longer than I was. And then we had 2 years of that. That was 2014. So we piloted. I was on a job that just coincidentally took over 2 years to finish. And then at the end of that, they decided, based on the results, the impact of the company, let's get more of this. So they made the position, they advertised it publicly and privately. They said, we strongly encourage you to apply for this position.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Wink.
Yeah. And then the guy that interviewed me, my first interview was the COO, Scott Whitcup, and he was really cool in the interview, like just getting to know. It was the first time we'd actually had like a real conversation. They were like, we want to have you talk to him because your role is going to be national. It's going to touch multiple regions. We just want to get a sense of like, is this something you're A, interested in, and B, are you even going to be good at it?
Right.
Right? So that ended up being a really cool conversation with him. And the rest, they say, is history. 2 years later, got promoted to national director for the whole organization. So then I had to take on more strategy type of function for the role, still working with tactics. And then we've had demand increasing and surging ever since. And we've got ourselves well positioned across the company. I still will bump into people in the organization that don't know what I do. That still happens. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of people, but most of the leadership.
Yeah, 5,000, yeah.
And we're expanding, what we're doing now, from a group of people just doing it for fun to encourage each other to now it's part of how we're doing business. In a really small span of time has been really incredible to be a part of. And
I was going to say, that's going to be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know my counterparts at some of the other companies, and through the work with some of the nonprofits like the Lean Construction Institute, we do compete with each other and check notes.
Right.
Like,
what did you do? What have you done lately?
Yeah. Yeah, because at these different events and at seminars, you can see what people are doing and what's going on in the industry and what we're facing. We're all facing the same thing. We're an industry of tradition. There's a long established way for how things are done. And if you rock the boat too much, it's just, you can only change so much so fast, but there's definitely things that you can do where you can have returns on your investment, like to the tunes of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
That's the type of payback that some of this stuff has.
That's crazy.
And it's been really cool. There's just been like no slowdown for what the company wants to do with it. I've worked with accounting, legal, risk, corporate IT, like HR, training. That's back of house. And then project-wise, the first year I worked with 6 teams in year 1, and I started like in June. So that's about almost a team a month. And then now I work with, 3 to 10 plus teams per month.
Wow.
Jeez.
So
that's where I was actually going to go. I was curious if more of your work is done, like you said, in the back of the house on the operations side or more, in the field.
Labor,
Where do you, I would imagine you probably find more room for efficiencies in the field, right? That's probably where you get the bigger gain. But there's probably a lot of systems that can be.
You'd be surprised. You can get a lot in both spots. Like if you're like a friend of mine used to always say, like there's people that work in the business and there's people that work on the business. And good businesses can find people to do both.
Right.
Today we have. I'm not alone, even though I'm by myself and departmentally, organizationally. I report to Scott's my boss now, so I report directly to him, and we talk to the C-suite pretty often. So it's really good to get their feedback, and they're setting the tone and direction for the company, and I helped support to achieve that with all of our partners.
Right.
And so the way we kept that model of these volunteers forward, because those people definitely gave me tons of insight. Like I didn't start at zero when I joined that group. I started where they were, and they helped to onboard me and guide me. And then from there, I was able to take off. And when you dedicate yourself full time to something, you can really get exponentially more effective than if you were just trying to figure things out by yourself. So the people that I work with every day, day in and day out, definitely help and encourage me, because it's not easy work.
Yeah.
So if I came to your office and said, "Hey, you've been doing insurance.
You're doing it all the wrong way." Yeah.
We're gonna change the way you do insurance today.
Yeah.
Everybody in your office will be like, "There's the door. Don't let them hit you on the way out, or we'll actually kick you out the door." Right? Today, we have more than 60 people involved they have a full-time job in our company, but they're also involved as a volunteer working in our group. And that's how we call ourselves, like a lean leader group.
Yeah.
Yeah. And each region sets its own tone, has quite a bit of control. So we have the national strategy and tactics, and then within how they achieve that to support the regional business needs, it's all within their power. And every single group has 1 to sometimes 4 vice presidents in the group, all the way down to project engineer. And we have some corporate people in the group as well. There's an accountant in the group. There's a person in IT. There's a person in human resources.
They're all just kind of collaborating and
So they do work in their respective locales, like geographic regions. And then occasionally we come together when it makes sense and we cross collaborate. So it's a very effective way to communicate and then exponentially move the needle as a collective.
What's the learning curve been like? Having to touch so many different departments, coming from your background. I guess you have to get involved pretty heavily in the minutia of the daily grind of each one of these different departments. Is there a learning curve into understanding how they operate before you get to what you're going to do as far as, the efficiency part?
Absolutely. I'm like a super sponge, lifelong learner. So I'm very curious nature just in general. And being in the business for 20 plus years, you pick up on stuff. And I've worked in many different capacities and roles. So like when I went to go work in there was a joint force between HR and IT, for example. We had two different groups working together on an initiative. I come in under the guise of facilitator to help, right? I didn't come in with an agenda.
Right.
Like I just came in to be helpful. That's how I come into every single group, come in
Right.
being helpful.
Right.
I'm not going to come in like, even if something is super obvious to me, at the end of the day, Mike, you got to keep responsibility with the people that do the work.
Yep.
That's
Well, and you're
something
gonna
that
get-
I learned.
Yeah, and you're going to get more buy-in from those that you're working with as opposed to coming in and start barking orders. You know what I mean?
Right on.
Yep.
Yeah. And I use that, like, I look at, like, if I work with a group and they do something later, do I get called again? That's a measure of success for me, just
Right.
personally. Like,
Right.
if I work with somebody one time and never again, I need to go back to them and find out what did I do wrong. Right? Yeah, so for the most part, I get, working with people constantly. Like, there's a team in Illinois that their project is finally coming to the point where they've had to go to different jobs. So they're kind of breaking up the team that's been together for about half a decade. They'd call me every 3 months, every 2 months, sometimes every month. I mean, it was pretty consistent all the time. So that was a good measure of, that's a good interaction with them, and they're getting some value out of what we're doing. And likewise for me, I'm getting good value out of that. A lot of the people that work in our industry, I mean, you can go to a job and you might even be like a tradesperson working on one particular thing, like the mason, for example, doing masonry work on a building. They might not ever even go into the finished structure,
Right.
because they're only part of a certain part.
Right.
So they don't even get to see that whole thing. And the same thing happens, on the professional side as well. Sometimes people are so into their specialization that they don't get to see the whole value stream of what is the building we're doing, what's the purpose of it, how is it going to be used. That opportunity is not always there for people. So
Yeah.
that's one of the
Understanding
things
the
that-
why. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to bring that to every once, and when we're working together, like, I'll be almost annoying with it. Like, why are we doing this? Right? Almost annoying.
Yeah. Almost.
Almost annoying.
Never crossing that line, though. Never
Yeah,
crossing that
I
line.
get close. Like, I'll stand on the line, like, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Are you getting more of your direction from the top level executives who are looking at P&Ls and efficiencies and like that? Or is it more requests from the departments directly saying, hey, we're
have
needing
that
help with
information
this,
to
trying to
the
get more
C-suite, yeah.
efficient and doing all those kind of things? Or is
Yeah,
it,
so-
I would imagine it's a mixture of both, but where are you getting it more heavily?
Well, I get to see the same things that they see. So there's reporting mechanisms in place, like all larger size companies. Yeah, when I talk to leadership, I'm trying to listen to more, where do we need to go based on what they're hearing in the marketplace? What's coming down the line, what initiatives are important right now and why? And then how can I help achieve those things with the work that I'm doing with the people I'm doing it with? So like when I go back, so I'm seeing the same things that they see. So when we talk, we're already not like they're having to explain to me, what these numbers are. I know the numbers like they know the numbers,
Right.
which is a good thing. We've got a lot of transparency at this level, so we can see what's going on. And we're an employee-owned company, which makes it really easier.
Yeah.
It's hard work, and like everybody that works in this space will tell you, like, it's really hard work, but being employee-owned makes it a lot easier because people know that what they do affects how we operate.
Yep.
And to keep the lights on, you just don't want to break even. Breaking even doesn't even keep the lights on.
Right.
You get a little bit of variation in project performance, and then boom, all of a sudden you can't keep your lights on and you can't operate. And keeping the lights on is just one metaphor.
Yep.
Right. So then most of the demand that comes my way is word of mouth, because my goal is always to eliminate myself as a constraint as quickly as possible. We want everyone in the industry to be able to have these types of skills. Everything that we have is like in the public domain. People just aren't applying it because of those things like tradition and process that people aren't always aware that you have some flexibility in actually changing.
With the stuff you guys do, or the stuff that you do, and you guys are implementing, you guys make it pretty public, and you're not trying to.
Inside the company, we've got like internal ways that we share.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's difficult even still, because, the construction job takes all your attention. Current chairman of the board, Mike Bolin, always says, every day you go to work, the job's trying to kill you. It's a very dangerous industry.
Yeah. I mean,
still
that's a very real way to put it.
Very
Yeah.
truthful.
Yeah, if you walk into a site texting on your phone and there's earthwork happening, you have a high chance of getting in trouble, just with foot placement because of the changing terrain and what's going on. It's not like walking down a sidewalk where you can get away with a little bit, texting on your phone, not, getting too hurt too bad. But I've seen people walk into stuff, on the street.
Stop signs. Yeah.
Right? I mean, you've seen it. You've heard the stories. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure there's a Google channel dedicated, or YouTube channel
right.
dedicated to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So like on the site, you've got to be aware of a lot of things, and the conditions change daily. You've got to be really aware. And the same is back of house too. Like when people are managing the site from afar, back in the construction trailer or whatever, and they're dealing with the business things, they've got procurement that they're always focused on to make sure the right stuff is there to feed, the people working in the buildings or whatever the type of construction is, to keep it going. It just does not happen by accident. It's a very intense, coordinated effort. And the people that do it, they do it really well. Like there are a lot of good firms out there doing it. The people that we have, I'm super happy to call partners, really focused, and they care deeply. That's like one of the things that you can't really quantify. Like, how much do people care?
Yeah.
You could tell when you go to someone's job, like to what level of care they have. And you can tell when you talk to folks, like how engaged they are. And that's one of the cool things about, working here is that our engagement's pretty high.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would imagine part of your job security is being able to quantify some of the things that you do and the successes that you've had. So what kind of metrics do you guys use to be able to measure and track some of the things that you do?
What a great question, Mike. I get asked that question all the time. I'm not even joking. Today, there was a small self-performed company that does like trade work, very specific niche work, like industrial. They called me and they were asking me, like, how do you track KPIs for what you do? I'm going to tell you the same thing that I tell everybody else. Your company already has key performance indicators that are important to them. You should really understand what they are and how what you're doing impacts them. So we look at the things that we track. If you ask, anybody on a typical job, the two big things that always come up are cost and schedule.
Right.
So most people agree, hands down, cost and schedule are super important. And as you talk to more people, safety and quality will make the top 10 list.
Hopefully.
And then hopefully, right? And then now teamwork is starting to make the list of like the most often cited things that are critical. And we know from the research of people that study this for a living that teamwork and the people on your team, the individuals on your team, have more of impact than anything else for the success of your project. It's by far exponentially higher. I don't know what the statistics are off the top of my head. The team is number one, the people you have, and then the processes that your company brings are, they're in there, but they're not the most important. Yep. So I would say to everybody out there, it doesn't matter where you are in construction, whether you're a tradesperson, a foreman, a crew leader, a superintendent, a project manager, a director, an executive, your company is already looking at things that are important to them. So you should understand what those are. And what you do definitely translates to impact on those key KPIs, key performance indicators. Inside the company, I look at, what's important to our organization so that we stay healthy as a company. That means that we're keeping our people, because I look at that, the people more so than the other things. And then I will also look at cost and schedule. And then we see what are we doing to move the needle on those? And that's how we engage. There's a lot of lean tools out there, more than 100. There's more than 100 different tools with processes to improve stuff. And I don't recommend all of them. So I always recommend stuff that we try and then that actually impacts what we're trying to do. Because you can shine something. They call it in other industries call it gold plating. When something's already gold and shiny, you can keep gold plating and it doesn't get any shinier. It doesn't get right? So we don't want to do any gold plating, but we want to just deliver. I tell the customers, like, we want to give you exactly what you contracted for and not a penny more.
Yeah.
And they react just like you did.
Yeah, just kind of frozen. Yeah.
Like, what? They're like, what do you mean? You're not a charity?
So many companies that will focus on the bottom line and how do we do these things? What do we do to make this bottom line grow? Not understanding that first step is the people, right? Like getting the people to buy in and to love what they do and be part of that team and have that atmosphere. And it's obviously people that come onto our show that are, executives and CEOs or have their own business construction company. They tend to be successful, right? There's not many people that want to come on this show that aren't doing well, right? They don't want to come on and talk about how they're doing if they're not doing well. Yeah. But to that end, a very common theme when we talk about, what you're looking for in people and how you're hiring and how you're doing almost all of them, it's culture first, right? They don't care if you can do the job or if what your skill set is, or because those things can be taught and those things can be learned and those things can be developed. But if you fit into the team and you can buy into what everybody else is getting on board with, that's their measure of success. And I think that's what's important here is that even a position like yours for a multi-billion-dollar company, it's still about the people buying in, treating them the right way and doing and giving quality work and your customers and all that stuff. The bottom line just happens to be a byproduct of all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And some people that focus on cost cutting first as a way to do lean, it always has disastrous results. The information's out there in the public domain.
But it's so much easier. So much easier.
They're like, oh, we can just, do half as much. And then you just make twice as much more. And it's like, no.
That's not.
Doesn't work that way.
1 + 1 does not equal 5.
No, but there are a lot of failures out there. And then, in the type of industry we have, it's a very siloed industry. Gone are the days of the master builder type approach where the architect would issue a drawing set, for something even like the Empire State Building of less than 100 sheets. I mean, you can't build a shed for less than 100 sheets anymore. All right, so like and some of that is just due with specialization. Like even what I do, people look at like, well, you're the lean expert. Like, well, actually, I'm a business specialist. My specialty is business. From the time the customer thinks that they want to do something, when it's just I think building this building will help me solve my business problems, to the time they're occupying the building, and they're thinking about giving us the next job. That's what I'm involved in. That's my business. My business is that, helping people solve problems. By building things, buildings like a hospital. Like if your hospital demand now, COVID, a perfect example. If before COVID, you're almost at capacity with treating things like diabetes, heart disease, and other things that people are coming into your hospital for, and then you throw a pandemic on top of it, how do you change to keep serving those needs that are pretty predictable, but then you also that surge because of having to deal with the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So like we've had to do things like that and help our customers navigate that. That's what I'm into, the full business part, all the way. Now, as a part of this kind of specialization, you pick up some cool stuff, like don't tell people what to do. Like ask them, like our program is voluntary, as compared to some other companies that have it mandated, our adoption is much higher. It's much higher because we help people make their job easier, better, faster, and that benefits our clients. Our clients 100% benefit. Our happy people on their projects definitely delivers their projects on schedule. I went to a job 2 weeks ago. It's right here in my backyard in Sacramento, and they're almost 3 months ahead of schedule is what they finished.
Jeez.
And they had applied high lean intensity. These are people I've been working with since 2016. And I remember the one gentleman who's now a project director, he had just barely was a project manager the first time I met him. And he told me, he's like, when I first heard about lean, he's like, I hated it. He's like, here was management trying to tell me what to do.
How to do my job and how to,
piled more work on top of me. I'm already working like to the gills, and they were trying to pile more on me, but that was just one way. So we learned. I see a lot of companies, even now, like I was at a conference last week for 5 days, and I heard story after story from people at the conference that are like, our company sent us here. We don't even know why. Right? So they're just piling it on top. And then when I come back, the conference was a week long. When I get back, they were trying to do emails and answer client calls. They couldn't even allow themselves the space to learn for 5 days. Yeah. Right. So that was a problem. So this gentleman that I'm at his site now, he's a director now. He told me, he's like, this is actually like one of the nicest things that's ever happened. He's like, my team, the people that work for him now, he's like, they've come on, he's had some engineers work on his job, and then they were staffing down because they're getting to the end and they've gone to other projects. He's like, they call me and say, it's not the same. He's like, and they want to come back. He's like, there's something special here. And that special thing was really just a mindset. Yeah. And that mindset, I always tell people, it's really just two things. It's this. It's
that was sexy.
That was sexy. Sorry about killing your transition there.
Yeah. So it's just, respect for people is the first thing, and then continuous improvement. Those are the two big lean construction principles. And when you study what lean is deeper, you keep coming back to those two things. And people are always like, no, it can't be that simple. Yeah. Like, it's not simple. It's easy to say.
Yeah,
it's
harder difficult to do. Yep.
Right. And then how do you do that through a process? Like if you're working with a team of 100 people that have already been working together for a year, and then you come in to do something, you got to do some selling with them. Like, why are you there? They're not just going to say, yes, sir.
Yeah. We're happy to change everything we're doing for you. Yeah.
And we hear from people, we've got a lot of veterans that work in our organization as well. And they say the military is not blind following either. Leadership has to be earned. Respect has to be given. Right. The trust is built by actually working with people.
Well, cool. Kind of going, to that particular project with that gentleman that was the project director that wasn't totally sold, and just kind of talking about some of these guys, these other individuals that had moved on to different projects. I got to imagine based off of that not every project is working with that kind of lean theology in mind. Is that correct? Or where do you get brought in? Do they ask you to come in? Because I got to imagine if the buy-in is basically volunteer, which I think is the best kind of, buy-in, because people want to be there, right? They want to be a part of something that's bigger than them. They want to be able to give to that. But where do you kind of walk that line? Where do you get brought into that particular project within the company? How does that translate?
Yeah. So, I still will sometimes get a call from a vice president and they'll say, hey, it's so-and-so. I need you just to go to this job.
I see.
And they're like, you'll know what's what when you're there.
We'll let you figure it out on your own.
Yeah. And, and sometimes they say more of like what the concern is. They never, the good thing about, being in this type of company that I'm in, people that have been working for us they've been with us for a long time. So it's not like, somebody just showed up and you're dealing with total unknowns. These are people that we've known for quite a while. We'll go in, I'll call the, project manager. I'll look on the project list, like, who do I know here? Do I need the person to make an introduction, or do I actually know somebody there? If I know somebody there, I'll call them and say, hey, how's it going? I don't know if you know that I've changed roles. I'm not in operations anymore. I still have to say that because I've been doing it for 5 years. Some people still think I live in Orange County, even though I've been up here for 4 years. So I'll tell them, like, yes, I moved. And no, I did not get your Christmas card. So I don't know what's going on.
I thought we were friends.
Now I know better. I was like, I want to come visit your job. And I've had, a couple times, some of the job leadership say,
hell no,
when I walk in the front door. And I got to tell them why I'm there and just be totally transparent with them. And I was like, I'm not here to, if you've ever worked with me, you'll know we do some root cause analysis. Never once has the source of something that's gone wrong in a project actually been an individual person's.
Right. It's not personal. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not been a personal fault. It's usually some systemic thing, some process issue.
Yep.
It's caused the problem. And so once we get to that understanding, and I've had a superintendent, I remember this was a job 2 years ago. This happened on the job. Oh, I finally worked it in.
Perfect. Love
so this
that.
happened on the job. Yeah, you're welcome. So I show up. First of all, the job's 4 hours away. So I've been driving in a car for 4 hours to get to this job. I had to get up at 3 a.m. to get to, and the superintendent didn't care. He's living down at the city where this is. I show up. I get there before the executive that's supposed to be doing the "Why is Felipe here?" conversation. He got caught in traffic, because there was a wreck. Because when you drive for 4 hours, something's bound to happen. Right. So I got hey, and the guy said to me, he's like, "Oh, so you think you're going to tell me how to do my job?" Like, this has been a superintendent. He's been a superintendent for 20 years. I've only been in the business for 20 years. He was other things before that. So I told him, I said, actually, no, you're going to tell me how to do my job, with a big smile on my face. And I just got, I just tried.
How long did it take for him to cock back and try and hit you?
He stood there. He's like, I don't know if I should slap him. Yeah. And then from there, I explained to him, I don't know what you do. I've been a superintendent before, but I was on this type of structure.
Right.
This is something totally different. And just for anonymity, I won't say what the structure was, because people that know me will know exactly where I was 4 hours away. And I told him, I was like, I'm here to learn. I was like, you've been around and you've had really cool successes. And there's a crew of 45 people out there that follow you, that would follow you anywhere. I'm trying to understand what's going on here that we're not getting what we need. And I said, I can guarantee you it's not going to be you.
Right.
I said, I guarantee you it's not you. So then he relaxed and I said, would you mind showing me your job? So we went and walked the job and we'd see stuff and I'm asking questions and he's noticing things based on my dumb questions. And I always tell people, if I do come to your project, I'm going to ask thousands of questions.
Most of which are, you're going to think are dumb.
And they're not rhetorical.
Yeah.
I don't ask rhetorical questions and I don't ask trick questions. I'm really curious and I need to know.
Yeah.
So that's how I go at it. And people are super proud and what they do and show you what's going on. The client ended up giving the project team a change order for something negotiated that otherwise would have been really contentious. Basically said, here's $2 more million worth of work. Thank you. And please do it. Just the way you've done everything else. And we ended up, I think they doubled their profit on that job as a result of what we did. And we really just went after two things: improving the information flow from the foreman to the superintendent.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that going in. When I landed there, I didn't know that that's what I was going to focus on. By being curious and walking around, listening and seeing that opportunity, and I realized, and you don't realize that unless you have a lot of experience, and you'll pick up on stuff like that. We made that little switch. The general foreman became a superintendent on the next job, got promoted. The project manager became a senior project manager. The director became an executive vice president. I mean, like, just a nice chain reaction. Not all at the same time, but like the changes definitely helped them and impacted them in positive ways that they carried them forward. And now I can call any of them and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And we can bounce stuff off of each other.
Yeah.
Like, really easy now.
Well, you've planted seeds in each of them, right? And as they've moved on to more leadership positions, that gets disseminated later on in other projects and other things that are happening within the company.
Yeah. We tell people, like, good ideas spread on their own. Bad ideas take a lot of marketing.
Yeah. That's actually true.
That's awesome.
Oh, man.
So do you get Christmas cards from all of them now, I hope?
No, I don't. I was like, Felipe engineer, I can't tell what you are.
But though, I think that in terms of your respect for people, especially when you walk in and I think you're right. There's that initial like, oh God, here comes the guy with the suit. He's trying to fix me and fix my project. There's that suspicion that comes as a result, and it creates that divide between them and their people and you, right? But you come in unarming, or you're basically saying, I'm not here against you. I'm actually here for you. I want to help you in any way that I can, and I don't know what I don't know what to tell you yet. Let's just hang out and be buddies.
Let's see what's going on.
Yeah, you break that down, and I think that creates what's the collaboration. It creates teamwork. It creates the ability, an environment where people are willing to move forward and come up with new ideas and not be afraid to espouse those ideas and share that with you, and for them to share amongst themselves. And you're right. I mean, sometimes just the simplest thing in terms of communication from the bottom up and from the top down or whatever it is, and they all realize that they're not going to be in trouble if they do something, or Big Brother's watching them, that they're there to be a part of a team. You're right. Things get done quickly. And people are excited to be a part of that.
It's easy to say. It's very hard to implement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very hard to implement. So like earlier in my career, I remember working for a director. He was a PM at the time. And this is before I knew more about lean. And, he told me, he's like, the good thing about you is you're just a workhorse. Like we can just pile work on you and you'll just do it. Like whether it's right or wrong. And he's like laughing. He was like
Thank
laughing,
you?
right or wrong.
Question mark?
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't feel like this is a compliment. And this was during
This is not a good thing.
this was during a performance review. So like he's giving me good high marks and I'm asking him for like what else. And that's why I realized like I don't know enough. Like I was at that point I was pretty cocky. I was, younger than I am now. If you can't tell from my beautiful hairline. This doesn't happen. This happens with experience.
Takes some time, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And then I just remember walking away from that like, I don't like that label. I'm going to drop some of the shit you're giving me right now. But then I wanted to know more things. So I started, improving my network and then finding my own gaps. Like, what do I not know? And I went deeper into this lean type of thinking and mindset and community. And it just, it's just paid back dividends. It's been transformational. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And like my show is all about making it easier for everybody. And we have guests come on and we share stories and I get to interview other people. I barely talk, which is ironic because you can tell like I'm talking a lot.
That's the way we like to do our show too.
You got that rad voice though. I mean,
this is the normal me, Brian and Mike.
Are you bringing on other contractors who are interested in these ideas, or have they implemented some of your ideas? Or
yeah, I've had like so far different trades partners that we work with, and my show is completely voluntary. Like we're sponsored just coincidentally. The Lean Construction Institute sponsors my show, and that was just like they asked me. Like they heard I was going to start a show, and my first show was with one of my friends that had worked similar type of role that I did early on, Josh. And then after that show, people were like, man, that show is actually entertaining. Like I didn't think systems thinking could be an interesting conversation. And then a friend of mine had been telling me forever, for 4 years, I had a friend who had a podcast, and she would like just badger me every time she saw me. She worked in a different city, and she'd be like, you should have your own show. You should do videos. You should do videos. Yeah, I should. who would watch them.
Kind of what we thought too.
So yeah, I started getting ready and making that change. I started realizing like this is going to be good for me too.
Yep.
So I'm going to get to hear things and talk to folks. Like I've had owners on the show. I've talked to some of my peers and said, you know, if you want to come on, you can come on. Like it's up to me. Like my sponsor doesn't have a say. Before I started the show, I told McCarthy like, hey, I'm going to do this show. And they were like, okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I was like, it would be nice, McCarthy, if you want to reshare the show, like I'm not against you sharing it. So, like feel free to reshare anytime. Yeah. And so I've had like clients have been on. It's been pretty much in the beginning, it was a lot of the people that just I've worked with over the past 2 decades.
Yeah.
And then now I've been having like authors call me and say like, hey, I heard you got this construction show. Want to come on? Yeah. And I've had, through the show, I've talked to people from all over the world. Like one of the things that I'm really passionate about is Scrum, which is an agile methodology. I mean, it predates agile as a mindset. Just, set the record straight. Scrum is older than agile. For all the people that know, only a couple of nerds right now are like, that's right. And everyone else is like, what? We thought it was like so Scrum is it's a management framework that allows people to get work done incrementally faster, more valuable with less effort. So that's like the short and sweet definition for complex work. Could be products or services. A lot of people think it was born in software. It was actually born out of hardware. It has its roots in the military with one of the founders, Jeff Sutherland. I've had people contacting me from all over the world talking about, how have you done this in construction? How do you do this? Like, how do you make it look easy? It's like, well, enthusiasm is definitely a big part. And that's just part of the fun. But I'm out there doing the work the same as I'm doing it inside the company. I'm going to do this type of work no matter what position I'm in. I can do this work on top of what the responsibilities are because I just have to.
That's how you're wired. Yeah.
That's how I'm wired. I just have to do it. I like doing it. It's good and people like it.
Yeah.
It's like
it's very rewarding. It's a very rewarding field to be in. Like to know that some of the things that you guys are collaborating with them with, or you guys are figuring out together. It's rewarding to see them kind of come to fruition and be successful.
And then with some of these methodologies that we have the case studies and the proof that show that this works and that it scales. Can it scale down to like a $5 million project? The answer is yes. Mm-hmm. It always, treating people right, always
that's 100% scalable. Yeah.
100% scalable. It is hard to do. And like the tactics are very specific and how we spend time and get people involved and want to stand up and do some of this is, I'm very methodical with how I do it in the organization. We've got some really talented people that make it look easy for their partners, but it's not easy.
Yeah, and I have to imagine getting the buy-in on some of those smaller projects is probably a little bit harder too, right? Like a 1% change on $1 billion project, pretty decent chunk of change, right? Like a 1% change on a $5 million or a $2 million project, kind of negligible depending on who you are, right? Like so. Right. I imagine that's probably part of the struggle with getting the buy-in on some of those smaller projects also.
We had a small job that was going they said, we've got something we have to finish in 10 weeks. And like, we don't think you can help. And I was like, oh, challenge accepted. So I said, I'm going to help you in one conversation. So we talked on the phone and then we inevitably had to jump on a Zoom call, because we needed to share something.
Right.
Then once we got to see a couple things and then they made one change. They made the change and they finished that job earlier.
Earlier than the 10 weeks.
Earlier than 10 weeks. Yeah. They thought it was impossible. And the guy's like, I'm only calling you because I've seen you in the office and, and people say that you have a gun that shoots silver bullets that kill bad schedules. And I'm like, I don't actually have silver bullets, but I might need those soon. So like I made no promises and I just said, now that we talked and he showed me some things, I said, all right, what do you want to change? He's like, I thought you were just going to tell me what to do. I was like,
no, I
am telling you what to do. I want you to tell me what you think. And then, so that led to, now he's got a bigger job. So it was like perfect transition. So now he went from a job where it's a traditional design bid build, that work that they were doing. Now they got a different client. The client wants to do full IPD, integrated project delivery. It's a different customer, same person, going from one project to the next. Now the client has in the contract, thou shalt do lean. It's like in the contract.
Wow.
No, so then he calls me and says, hey, I got this client now. We want to do it. What can we do to go further? I said, perfect.
What do you want to do?
A thing called look at the contract. Remember I told you, don't give the customer not even a penny more. Just give them what they bought.
Yep.
And because they're not used to getting what they paid for, when you give them what they paid for, they're ecstatic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right? You blow their socks off and you just give them what they paid for.
Yep. Well, you give them what you paid for when you said you were going to do it.
Which is astonishing, right? Like that's where our industry is at,
That's where it's at.
where giving what what's paid for and expected is mind blowing.
Over and above, right?
Yeah.
So here's a stat from McGraw-Hill that publishes a lot of construction stuff. There was a research done by Dodge Data and Analytics in the University of Minnesota, and they found that this is non-mega jobs. They surveyed the industry back in 2005, and then they went back and looked at this research again in like early 2000s, like 2000, I think 12 was they did a refresh. And they found the same thing. Traditional construction projects, like this would include design build as well as lean integrated project delivery. But the vast majority of jobs are design, bid, build. Lowest number, most qualified gets the price. You know, that has the winning price wins the work. All of those things all blended together. 3 out of 4 jobs over budget, 3 out of 4 late.
Yep. 100%.
Right. So the clients, like all the owners know, they all know like what they're going to get. And even in the research said the number one thing that the clients, when they look at their portfolio jobs that were successful, like the clients that build all the time, like your universities, your hospitals, like your counties and things that have, you know, that type of stuff where they're building all the time. When they look at their portfolios, they're like, to them, the differentiator is the people. That's what they all say. Yeah. The research said across the board, the 25% of projects that were successful, I'm rounding. I think the real number is like 67% and 68% or something like that. So I just say 3 out of 4. So I'm just rounding. Okay. So my nerds that are out there, like citing the research, like go ahead and send me, I have the papers. I just can't remember the exact numbers. Okay.
Close enough.
Yeah. So it's 3 out of 4. Try to find out like, why is the client building this thing? And if you can answer that question, if you know, and if you don't know, go ask somebody that does know. And don't stop asking until you find out why.
Get that leg up, yeah.
It'll make a big difference for your project.
Yeah. Very cool, man. What does the future look like for you? What's down the road for you? I mean,
I do plan quite a bit. I got a long plan. So number one, Mike, there's no retirement in my future.
I can't imagine that there would be, especially if you're always asking questions and looking to innovate. Yeah.
Always learning. So one of my mentors was William Edwards Deming. He died at 93 years old working.
Ugh,
that's awesome.
Some of my other mentors were the same way. Like they were just never going to hang it up.
Yeah.
Jeff Sutherland, I think he's over 80 now.
Wow.
And he's still going strong like a boss. I told him like he's even aging better than I am. Yeah, he's aging like a boss.
That's awesome.
And like he's got he's got people that are stepping in for him too, but like why would you stop?
Yeah.
That's what I always say. Like, why would I stop? Like, there's people always calling. People want to get involved in work. So long term, no retirement, right? That could change, but probably won't. I was like, in the short term, I just this year had a software company contact me. I'm going to start serving as a board advisor to their company. And I had some other companies do the same thing earlier this year. So I had to look at a couple board positions. So now I'm going to serve some of my volunteer time, help guide them so they can deliver and do the same thing that I want to do, is make the work easier for people.
Very cool, man.
And even when it's easier, Mike, it's still not easy work.
No. You
don't want it to be. I mean, that's a snoozer right there.
Yeah. It's a lot more fun when there's a little bit of a challenge to it.
Yeah.
Just don't stop, man. Just can't stop, won't stop.
And then people, if you message me on social media, I will actually talk to you.
Perfect.
Like I love.
You're not too big time yet,
I can say that's true because that's how we got together.
Yeah. Very cool, man.
Super cool.
Very special thanks to my guest. I'm Felipe Engineer Manriquez. The EBFC show is created by Felipe and produced by a passion to build easier and better. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, everybody. Let's go build.